Hello friends, welcome to the aTech channel. Today we're going to talk about the strange history of Linux. You're probably wondering when and how the famous Linux was created, and probably why it became indispensable a few years later, or how the distributions work. If the answer is yes, sit tight, we'll tell you everything in this video. Let's get started. Linux was born in 1991. Yes, it has recently celebrated its 30th anniversary in 2021. Among its main distributions today are Ubuntu, Kali, Linux Mint, Arch, Fedora, Slackware, and REHL. Each of them is different, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's first take a look at the origins of Linux itself. So it all started with Linus Torvalds, a computer science student from Helsinki, Finland, created a simple operating kernel. Namely, he did it just for fun. Initially, Linux was called Freaks. This means that it is both free and belongs to the Unix family. Later, he changed the name to Linux. It is quite an interesting amalgam. According to him, it is so that his invention can above all bear his name, and of course, without forgetting the X of Unix. The incredible success of Linux is due to the personality of the creator, Torvalds, a brilliant nerd who one day bought a brand new computer at the age of 21 just with his savings. In a few weeks, he managed to create his own terminal emulator with the assembly language. After he managed to penetrate the arcana of the x86 architecture of his processor, soon he wanted to extend the functions of this program. At first, he wanted to save data on the disk. Then, his functions metamorphosized into a new operating system. Over the months, Torvalds managed to create an operating system from scratch. He decided to distribute for free via the FTP server. The first version of Linux was only a kernel, so to have a functional system, libraries, or a computer and a shell were necessary. This came from 3 operating systems. It was not until a year later in 1992 that the first Linux distributions appeared. Each of the Linux distributions has its own design philosophy. We can only mention, among others, Debian, which is one of the first distributions, announced on August 16th, 1993, for the first time by Lan Murdoch. It took 3 years for the first stable version to be released. Murdoch's basic idea was to create a stable distribution that could be downloaded and used for free by everyone, without the need to collect one by one its applicants and then compile them. On the other hand, it is a heavy distribution compromising many useless applications for some users. Ubuntu was then introduced to remedy this. This distribution was more user-friendly and lighter. Its first version was released in 2004 by Mark Zuddleworth, an internet magnate for South Africa. The word Ubuntu literally means humanity towards others. It is based on the latest Debian distribution. However, not all the distributions have been equally successful. The popularity of Slackware, the Linux distribution launched in 1992 by Patrick Villarding, for example, it was affected by the fact that it was always remained a leading distribution. Initially, it was supposed to be robust and highly customizable rather than user-friendly. Slackware remains the oldest distribution still in existence today. In the case of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, it is a paid distribution. This one is rather intended for professional users. For individuals, the free alternative of RHEL is Fedora. The latter offers many features that can be found on the paid version. REHL and Fedora use a Red Package Manager as a package management system. This gives it a short command line to manage each software package. The goal is to avoid the software from other distributions can execute them directly. Gen2 Linux is another major distribution created by Daniel Robbins. It was released in 2000 and is mainly decided to corporate uses and developers. Its main advantage is the fallacies network management. This distribution based on the Python programming language. With the emergence of open source movement, Linux has also been endorsed by most of the computer giants. For companies participating in the improvement of this operating system is a godsend. Taking advantage of its free status and sharing green code is an excellent way to make money by innovating faster. IBM is most spectacular witness of the success of Linux. It is chosen for all of its software and servers. No less than $1 billion were invested into this project. Other companies then followed IBM's example and started an integrated Linux into their products. There is currently one main difference between Linux distributions certified by a Free Software Foundation and the other competing operating systems. Mac OS, Microsoft Windows, and Solaris are not free operating systems. Therefore, they do not offer users the 4 freedoms defined in the GNU General Public License. Linux, on the other hand, makes its distributions independent from the vendor and promotes collaborating and sharing. There is a difference between free software and free software. Free software does not have to be free. As well, free software is not necessarily free. Taking into consideration copyright, contributors offer 4 freedoms. One is the use of unlimited software. Then, the study of the software. After that, the contributors give the right to the user to adapt the software to his needs. Finally, the user has the right to redistribute the software, but under certain conditions. On the other hand, the non-respect of these conditions can lead to condemnation. There are other licenses that are based on the copyleft principle. Copyleft is based on precept and reciprocity. If a result has been obtained from the copylefted software, the software must also be free. This is the case of the most common free license notability in the Linux kernel itself. Open source. One of the 4 criteria equivalent for the idea of free software has advantages. Bug fixes are done quickly, for example. Security vulnerabilities can also be fixed. Linux cannot be developed without the presence of a standard protocols used in the internet. A large amount of free software also includes reference implementations such as Apache. The supporters of free software are therefore always supporters of open formats and data formats with technical details are public. The market is then shared between different providers. Each has its own technology. They can also be under control of the economic actor. In this case, it is him who concludes their formats in the form of protocols. Currently, a youthful passion of Linus Torvalds has become an essential software in the field of computing. At the time, we had no idea that Linux would become an essential part of modern computing. Linux is everywhere. It is the heart of most smartphones. Almost all supercomputers and good part of servers, among others, are powered by Linux. You can also find it in embedded computers or in countless electronic devices. GNU/Linux is also a very popular operating system for developers and geeks, but not so much among the general public. Many people think that Linux distributions have difficult to learn and therefore opt to be a popular system. The Linux Foundation has succeeded in counting in its ranks a majority of the most innovative companies. They range from search engines to social networks on smartphones, design companies. These crazy projects, single individuals, has become the most important operating system on the planet 30 years after its launch, and this is just the beginning. Companies of the future will still rely on Linux to their needs. This is because of the free lines of code shared for all and can be improved by anyone. This is it, folks. We're come to the end of our video. What do you think of our video? Most importantly, let us know in the comments if you're more about this strange history of Linux. Feel free to like the video and share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe and activate that notification bell to receive updates. Thanks a lot and see you soon on the aTech channel.